The stagecoach lurched to a violent stop in front of a weathered general store in Virginia City, Nevada, and Olivia Thornton clutched her carpetbag so tightly, her knuckles turned white as the bitter February wind of 1876 cut through her woolen traveling cloak like a knife through butter. She had traveled 3,000 miles from Boston to marry a man she had never met, and now the stagecoach driver was telling her that her intended husband was dead. "Cholera took him last week, miss," the driver said, his weathered face full of sympathy as he helped her down from the coach. "Real sorry you came all this way for nothing." Olivia stood on the frozen mud of the main street, her breath forming white clouds in the frigid air, and felt her entire world crumble around her. She had exactly $12 to her name, no family to return to in Boston, and nowhere to go. The other passengers hurried into the warmth of nearby buildings, leaving her alone with her single bag and her shattered dreams. "You looking for Samuel Henderson?" a deep voice asked behind her. She turned to see a tall man in his late 20s, broad-shouldered and rugged, with dark brown hair that curled slightly at his collar and eyes the color of storm clouds. He wore a heavy sheepskin coat and practical boots, and there was something solid and dependable about him that made her want to trust him immediately. "Yes," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I was supposed to marry him." The man's expression softened. "I'm Yates Richardson. I own a ranch about 10 miles north of here. Samuel was my neighbor. He was a good man, and I'm real sorry for your loss, even though you never got the chance to know him." "I don't know what to do," Olivia admitted, and she hated how small her voice sounded. She had always prided herself on being strong and independent, but right now she felt completely lost. Yates studied her for a moment, then glanced up at the sky. Dark clouds were rolling in from the north, heavy and threatening. "There's a storm coming, a bad one by the looks of it. The boarding house is full up with miners who came down from the Comstock when the weather turned. You need a place to stay, at least until you figure things out." "I don't have much money," Olivia said, lifting her chin despite her embarrassment. "I'm not asking for money," Yates said quietly. "Samuel told me all about you in his letters. He showed me your photograph and talked about how excited he was that you were coming. He would have wanted someone to help you, and I'm offering. My ranch has plenty of room and my housekeeper can chaperone. You can stay there until the storm passes and you decide what you want to do next." Olivia looked into his eyes and saw only honest concern. She had no other options, and the wind was growing colder by the minute. "Thank you," she said. "I accept your kind offer." Yates nodded and picked up her carpetbag as if it weighed nothing. "My wagon is just down the street. We need to hurry. That storm is going to hit within the hour, and I want to get home before it does." They made their way to a sturdy wagon hitched to 2 strong horses. Yates helped her up onto the seat and then climbed up beside her, taking the reins in his capable hands. As they left Virginia City behind, Olivia studied the landscape around them. The Sierra Nevada mountains rose majestically in the distance, their peaks already obscured by heavy clouds. The high desert stretched out in all directions, dotted with sagebrush and the occasional juniper tree. "How long have you lived here?" she asked, partly to be polite and partly because his presence was oddly comforting, and she wanted to keep him talking. 5 years, Yates said, his eyes on the road ahead. "I came out from Missouri after the war, bought the ranch from a man who wanted to try his luck in California. It's been hard work building it up, but it's mine, and that means something." "You fought in the war?" Olivia asked. His jaw tightened slightly. "I did. For the Union, lost my father and both my brothers. When it was over, I couldn't go back to Missouri, too many memories, so I came west to start fresh." "I'm sorry for your losses," Olivia said softly. "That's kind of you," Yates replied. "What about you?" What made you decide to come west as a mail-order bride? Olivia was quiet for a moment, then decided honesty was the best approach. My parents died of influenza 2 years ago. I was working as a teacher, but the school board decided they wanted a man for the position. I tried to find other work, but Boston is expensive, and opportunities for unmarried women are limited. When I saw Samuel's advertisement, he seemed kind in his letters. I thought maybe I could build a new life out here. Teaching is good work, Yates said. We don't have a proper school in this area. The few families with children teach them at home or send them down to Virginia City when the weather allows. If you wanted to stay, I bet you could start a school. People would pay for it. Before Olivia could respond, the first snowflakes began to fall. Within minutes, the gentle flurries had transformed into a blinding wall of white. The wind howled around them, and Olivia pulled her cloak tighter, shivering despite the layers of clothing she wore. "Hold on," Yates shouted over the wind. "We're almost there." The horses pushed forward through the increasingly deep snow, and Olivia could barely see 5 feet in front of them. She had never experienced a storm like this in Boston. The cold was bone-deep and merciless, and she was genuinely frightened. Finally, through the swirling snow, she saw the dark outline of a large cabin. Yates guided the horses toward it, and when they reached the shelter of a small barn, he jumped down and quickly began unhitching the animals. "Go inside," he called to her. "The door is unlocked. Get warm. I need to take care of the horses." Olivia climbed down from the wagon, her legs stiff from the cold and the journey. She grabbed her carpetbag and struggled through the snow to the cabin door. When she pushed it open, warmth enveloped her immediately. A large stone fireplace dominated one wall, and a fire burned brightly within it. The cabin was surprisingly spacious and well-furnished, with a comfortable-looking sofa, a dining table with 6 chairs, and several doors that presumably led to other rooms. She set her bag down and moved closer to the fire, holding her hands out to the flames. Her fingers were numb, and painful tingles shot through them as they began to thaw. She was still standing there when Yates came in, covered in snow and breathing hard. "That storm hit faster than I expected," he said, brushing snow from his hair and shoulders. "We're going to be stuck here for a while. These Sierra storms can last for days." "What about your housekeeper?" Olivia asked, suddenly aware that they were alone. Yates looked uncomfortable. "Mrs. Patterson lives in town. She comes out 3 times a week to help with cleaning and cooking, but she wasn't scheduled to come today. With this storm, she won't be able to make it out here at all until it clears." Olivia felt a flutter of concern. Being trapped alone with a man she barely knew was highly improper, but she could hardly blame Yates for the weather. "I see. I'll sleep in the barn," Yates said quickly. "You can have the cabin. There's food in the pantry and plenty of wood for the fire. You'll be perfectly safe, I promise." "You cannot sleep in the barn," Olivia protested. "You will freeze to death. This is your home, and you have been nothing but kind to me. I trust that you are a gentleman." Yates met her eyes, and something passed between them, a connection that Olivia could not quite name, but that made her heart beat faster. "I am a gentleman," he said quietly. "You have my word that you are safe with me." "I believe you," Olivia said, and she realized with some surprise that it was true. Despite having known this man for only a few hours, she felt safer with him than she had felt with anyone since her parents had died. Yates cleared his throat and moved to add more wood to the fire. "There are 2 bedrooms. You can take mine. I'll sleep out here on the sofa. Are you hungry? I can make us something to eat." "Let me help," Olivia said. "I'm a decent cook, and it's the least I can do after all your kindness." They worked together in the small kitchen area, and Olivia was impressed by how well-stocked Yates's pantry was. They made a simple meal of salt pork, beans, and fresh bread that Yates said Mrs. Patterson had baked just the day before. As they ate at the table, the storm raged outside, the wind howling like a living thing. "Tell me more about Samuel," Olivia said. "What was he like?" Yates set down his fork and considered the question. "He was older, maybe 50 or so, a widower. His wife died in childbirth along with the baby about 10 years back. He was lonely, I think. He kept to himself mostly, but he was always willing to help a neighbor. He had a small ranch, nothing fancy, but he made a decent living. He talked about you all the time in the last few months. He was really looking forward to your arrival. Did he suffer when he died?" Olivia asked quietly. "Doc Turner said it was quick," Yates replied. "That's something, at least." They finished their meal in companionable silence, and then Olivia insisted on washing the dishes. As she worked, Yates sat by the fire, and she was acutely aware of his presence. He was different from the men she had known in Boston. There was a quiet strength about him, a sense of capability that came from living in a hard land and meeting its challenges head-on. "What will you do?" Yates asked when she had finished and come to sit across from him. "Will you go back to Boston?" "I don't think so," Olivia said slowly. "There's nothing for me there. Maybe I'll stay in Virginia City and try to find work. You mentioned starting a school. Perhaps that's something I could pursue." "It's not a bad idea," Yates said. "This territory is growing. More families are settling here all the time. Education is important." "What about you?" Olivia asked. "Have you thought about marrying? This ranch seems like it could support a family." Yates stared into the fire for a long moment. "I've thought about it, but it's not easy to meet women out here, and the ones who do come west are usually already spoken for. I'm not much for writing letters to strangers, so the mail-order bride route never appealed to me. I figured if it was meant to happen, it would happen naturally." Outside, the storm intensified. The wind shook the cabin walls and snow piled up against the windows. Olivia shivered despite the warmth of the fire. "You should get some rest," Yates said. "It's been a long day for you. The bedroom is through that door. There are extra blankets in the chest at the foot of the bed if you need them." "Thank you," Olivia said, standing, "for everything. You've been incredibly kind to a stranger." "You're not a stranger," Yates said, and there was something in his voice that made Olivia's heart skip. "Not anymore." She smiled at him and went into the bedroom, closing the door behind her. The room was simple but comfortable, with a large bed covered in a colorful quilt, a dresser, and a small table with a basin and pitcher. She changed into her nightgown and climbed under the covers, but despite her exhaustion, sleep was slow to come. She kept thinking about the man in the next room, about his kindness and his gray eyes, and about the strange twist of fate that had brought her to this cabin in the middle of a snowstorm. When she finally did sleep, her dreams were confused and restless, full of swirling snow and a pair of steady gray eyes. She woke to the smell of coffee and bacon. Weak morning light filtered through the window, but the storm was still raging. She dressed quickly and emerged from the bedroom to find Yates at the stove cooking breakfast. "Good morning," he said, glancing over his shoulder at her. "I hope you slept well." "Well enough," Olivia said. "How long do you think the storm will last?" "Hard to say," Yates replied. "Could be another day or two, maybe 3. We've got plenty of supplies, so don't worry. We won't starve." They ate breakfast together, and then Yates announced that he needed to check on the horses and make sure the barn was secure. Olivia cleaned up the kitchen and then found herself with nothing to do. She explored the cabin, which was larger than she had initially realized. Besides the main room with the kitchen and fireplace, there were 2 bedrooms, a small storage room, and a root cellar accessed through a trapdoor in the floor. The cabin was well built and surprisingly homey. There were books on a shelf near the fireplace, and Olivia was pleased to see that they included several classics as well as practical volumes on ranching and animal husbandry. She selected a volume of poetry and settled on the sofa to read. Yates returned an hour later, stamping snow from his boots. "The horses are fine," he reported. "I gave them extra feed and water. The barn is solid. We should be all right." "I found your book collection," Olivia said, holding up the poetry volume. "You have excellent taste." Yates looked embarrassed. "Most of those were my mother's. She was a great reader. She made sure all of us boys knew how to read and write properly, even though we were farm kids. She said education was the key to a better life." "She sounds like a wise woman," Olivia said. "She was," Yates agreed. He shed his heavy coat and hung it by the door, then joined her by the fire. "I'm not much of a reader myself these days, too busy with the ranch work, but I keep the books because they remind me of her." They spent the day talking, and Olivia was surprised by how easy it was to converse with Yates. He was intelligent and thoughtful, with a dry sense of humor that made her laugh. He asked her about Boston, about her childhood, about her parents and her work as a teacher. She found herself telling him things she had never shared with anyone, about how lonely she had been after her parents died, about how frightened she had been to travel west, but how determined she was to build a new life. In turn, Yates told her about his childhood in Missouri, about his father's farm and his brothers. He spoke about the war with reluctance, and Olivia did not push him, but she could see the pain in his eyes. He talked more freely about coming to Nevada, about the challenges of building a ranch in this harsh landscape, about the satisfaction of watching his herd grow and his land prosper. "You ever get lonely?" Olivia asked as evening approached and they prepared dinner together. "Sometimes," Yates admitted, "especially in winter when the weather keeps me close to home, but I have good neighbors even though they're spread out, and I go into town regularly for supplies and to see people. It's not a bad life." "It seems like a good life," Olivia said. "You've built something real here. You should be proud." "Thank you," Yates said, and he smiled at her in a way that made warmth spread through her chest. That night, after they had eaten and cleaned up, they sat by the fire again. The storm showed no signs of letting up, and the world beyond the cabin walls was nothing but howling wind and driving snow. "I keep thinking about Samuel," Olivia said quietly. "About how he was waiting for me and planning for our life together, and then he died before we could even meet. It seems so unfair." "Life isn't always fair," Yates said. "I learned that during the war. Good people die for no reason and bad people sometimes prosper. All we can do is try to live the best we can and help each other when we can." "Is that why you helped me?" Olivia asked. "Because you wanted to do something good?" Yates looked at her, and in the firelight his eyes were very dark. "I helped you because when I saw you standing in the street looking lost, I felt something. I don't know what to call it. A connection, maybe. Like I was supposed to help you. Like you were supposed to be here." Olivia's breath caught in her throat. "I feel it too," she whispered. "Since the moment I met you, I've felt safe with you. More than safe. I feel like I've known you forever." Yates reached out and took her hand, his rough fingers gentle against hers. "Olivia, I know this is crazy. We barely know each other. But I can't stop thinking that maybe Samuel dying wasn't just a tragedy. Maybe it was meant to happen this way. Maybe you were meant to be here with me." "Are you saying what I think you're saying?" Olivia asked, her heart pounding. "I'm saying I want you to stay," Yates said. "Not in Virginia City. Here, with me. I know it's too soon to talk about marriage, but I'd like the chance to court you properly. I'd like to see if what we're both feeling is real." Olivia felt tears spring to her eyes. "I would like that too," she said. "Very much." Yates smiled, and it transformed his whole face. He lifted her hand to his lips and kissed it gently. "Then we'll take it slow. We'll get to know each other, and when the time is right, if we both feel the same way, we'll talk about the future." "That sounds perfect," Olivia said. They sat together by the fire, holding hands, and Olivia felt a happiness she had not known since before her parents died. The storm raged outside, but inside the cabin all was warm and peaceful. She had come west to marry a stranger, and instead she had found something better. She had found a man who made her heart sing, who made her feel safe and cherished and valued. She had found a home. The next day, the storm continued its assault on the cabin. Snow was piled high against the walls, and when Yates opened the door to check on the weather, a wall of white nearly knocked him backward. He struggled to close the door again, putting his full weight against it. "We're completely snowed in," he said, brushing ice crystals from his hair. "I've never seen a storm this bad. The barn is all right. I can see it from the window and the horses are safe, but we're not going anywhere for a while." "Then we'll make the best of it," Olivia said. She had spent the morning baking bread and the cabin smelled wonderful. "I've been thinking about what you said last night, about courting. I think we should use this time to really get to know each other. If we're going to be trapped here anyway, we might as well make it productive." Yates laughed. "That's practical thinking. What do you want to know about me?" "Everything," Olivia said. "Tell me about your dreams. What do you want for your future? What makes you happy? What scares you?" They spent the day trading stories and secrets. Yates told her about his dream of building the biggest ranch in the territory, of raising cattle and horses, of creating something that would last beyond his lifetime. He told her about his love of the land, of the way the desert looked at sunrise, of the satisfaction of hard work and tangible results. Olivia told him about her love of teaching, of the joy she felt when a student finally understood a difficult concept. She told him about her dream of opening a school, not just for wealthy children but for everyone, regardless of their background. She shared her love of books and poetry, of long walks in nature, of simple pleasures like fresh baked bread and clear starry nights. "You know what I think?" Yates said as they prepared dinner together that evening. "I think we're remarkably well suited to each other. You want to build a school and I want to build a ranch. We both value hard work and honesty. We both lost people we loved and came through it stronger. We both believe in helping others." "I think you're right," Olivia said. "It's strange how life works sometimes. I came here expecting one thing and found something completely different and better." As they ate, Yates brought up a practical concern. "When the storm clears, people are going to talk. You stayed here alone with me for several days. Even though nothing improper happened, rumors will spread. I don't want your reputation damaged." Olivia had been thinking about the same thing. "What if we got married right away, as soon as we can get to town and find someone to perform the ceremony?" Yates looked at her carefully. "Is that what you want? I meant what I said about courting you properly. I don't want you to feel pressured." "I don't feel pressured," Olivia said. "I feel certain. These past few days with you have shown me who you really are. You're kind and honorable and good. You make me laugh. You make me feel safe. I know it's fast, but I think I'm falling in love with you, Yates Richardson." Yates stood and pulled her to her feet, taking both her hands in his. "I'm falling in love with you too, Olivia Thornton. From the moment I saw you standing in the street, something inside me recognized you, like you were the missing piece I'd been looking for without even knowing it." "Then we'll get married as soon as possible," Olivia said, "and we'll build our life together. You'll build your ranch and I'll start my school. We'll help each other achieve our dreams." Yates pulled her into his arms, and Olivia rested her head against his chest, hearing the steady beat of his heart. She felt his lips brush the top of her head in a gentle kiss, and warmth flooded through her. "I never expected this," Yates murmured. "I thought I was just helping someone in need. I never imagined I'd find the woman I want to spend my life with." "Neither did I," Olivia said. "But I'm so glad I did." They held each other for a long time, swaying slightly to music only they could hear. Outside, the storm continued, but inside the cabin, two hearts had found their home. On the third day, Olivia woke to silence. The constant howling of the wind had stopped. She got up and looked out the window to see a world transformed. Snow covered everything, deep and pristine and sparkling in the morning sun. The sky was clear and brilliantly blue, and the air had a quality of stillness that was almost magical. Yates was already up, starting a fire in the stove. "Storm's over," he said when he saw her. "We should be able to dig our way out today. The road will be impassable for a while, but once I clear a path to the barn, I can saddle a horse and we can ride to town. It will be slow going, but we can make it." "How soon can we leave?" Olivia asked. "Give me a few hours to dig out and care for the animals. We should be able to head out after lunch." Olivia helped him with breakfast, and then Yates bundled up and went outside to start shoveling. Olivia watched from the window as he worked tirelessly, moving massive amounts of snow. She wanted to help, but he had insisted she stay inside where it was warm. While he worked, she packed her carpet bag and tidied the cabin. She felt a strange mixture of excitement and nervousness. Everything was happening so fast, but it felt right. She was making a leap of faith, but for the first time in a long while she felt confident in her choice. By early afternoon, Yates had cleared a path to the barn and saddled his strongest horse. He came back to the cabin, flushed from exertion but smiling. "Ready, ready," Olivia confirmed. He helped her onto the horse and then swung up behind her, wrapping an arm around her waist to keep her secure. The contact made Olivia's heart race, and she leaned back against him, feeling safe and protected. The journey to Virginia City took 3 hours instead of the usual one. The horse struggled through the deep snow, and several times they had to dismount and lead it through particularly difficult sections. But Yates was patient and persistent, and eventually the town came into view. Virginia City was bustling with activity as people emerged from their homes after the storm. Children were building snowmen and throwing snowballs while adults worked to clear paths and check on their neighbors. When Yates and Olivia rode down the main street, several people stopped to stare. "Is there a preacher in town?" Yates called to a man shoveling snow in front of the general store. "Reverend Williams is at the church," the man called back, his eyes curious as they moved from Yates to Olivia. Yates guided the horse to a small white church at the end of the street. He helped Olivia down and tied the horse to a post, then took her hand and led her inside. Reverend Williams was an elderly man with a kind face and white hair. He looked up in surprise when they entered. "Yates Richardson, is that you? And who is this young lady?" "This is Olivia Thornton," Yates said. "She came to marry Samuel Henderson, but he passed before she arrived. We've spent the last 3 days trapped together in my cabin by the storm, and we'd like to get married right away to protect her reputation." The Reverend's eyebrows rose, but his expression remained kind. "I see. And is this a marriage of convenience, or is there genuine affection between you?" "There's genuine affection," Olivia said firmly. "I know it's happened quickly, but I love him and I want to be his wife." "And I love her," Yates added. "I want to marry her and build a life with her." Reverend Williams studied them both for a long moment, then smiled. "Well, who am I to argue with love? Do you have witnesses? We'll need at least 2. "I'll find some," Yates said. He went back outside and returned a few minutes later with the man from the general store and a woman Olivia had never seen before. They were both smiling and seemed excited to be part of the ceremony. The wedding was simple and short, but to Olivia it was perfect. When Reverend Williams pronounced them husband and wife and told Yates he could kiss his bride, Olivia's heart was so full she thought it might burst. Yates cupped her face in his hands and kissed her gently, sweetly, and she felt the promise of their future in that kiss. After the ceremony, they went to the general store where Yates bought supplies and Olivia purchased fabric for new dresses. The storekeeper, a friendly woman named Martha, insisted on giving them a wedding gift of a beautiful handmade quilt. "You'll need this for those cold Nevada nights," Martha said with a wink. "Congratulations to you both." They also stopped at the land office, where Yates inquired about Samuel Henderson's property. The clerk told them that since Samuel had no living relatives, his land would be sold to pay his debts. "I'd like to buy it," Yates said. "What's the price?" After some negotiation, Yates purchased Samuel's land, which adjoined his own property. "Now our ranch is twice as big," he told Olivia as they left the office. "We can run more cattle and build that school you want." "You didn't have to do that," Olivia said, touched by his gesture. "I wanted to," Yates replied. "This is our future we're building, together." They spent one more night in town at the boarding house, which had rooms available now that many of the miners had returned to their claims. Yates insisted on getting 2 rooms, saying he wanted their first night as husband and wife to be in their own home, and Olivia appreciated his thoughtfulness. The next morning they set out for the ranch under clear skies. The journey was easier with the sun shining and the snow beginning to melt in places. When they arrived at the cabin, Olivia felt a rush of happiness. This was her home now. This was where she would build her new life with the man she loved. Yates lifted her off the horse and carried her over the threshold, and Olivia laughed with pure joy. He set her down in the main room and kissed her again, longer and deeper this time, and Olivia wrapped her arms around his neck and kissed him back with all the love in her heart. "Welcome home, Mrs. Richardson," Yates murmured against her lips. "I like the sound of that," Olivia said. "Mrs. Richardson. It has a nice ring to it." They spent the rest of the day settling in together. Olivia unpacked her carpetbag and arranged her few possessions in the bedroom that was now theirs to share. Yates brought in firewood and checked on the horses. They prepared dinner together, and the simple act of working side by side felt natural and right. That night, as they lay together in the big bed under Martha's wedding quilt, Olivia traced patterns on Yates's chest with her finger. "I want to tell you something," she said softly. "I've been thinking about it all day." "What is it?" Yates asked, his hand stroking her hair. "I want to thank you for being so patient with me, for taking things slowly even though we're married now. I know this is all very new and I appreciate your gentleness." Yates kissed her forehead. "We have all the time in the world. There's no rush. I want you to feel comfortable and safe always." "I do feel safe with you," Olivia said. "Completely and utterly safe. You're a good man, Yates Richardson, the best man I've ever known. And you're an extraordinary woman, Olivia. I'm the luckiest man alive." They held each other close as sleep claimed them, and outside the window, the stars shone brightly over the Nevada desert, bearing witness to the beginning of a great love story. The weeks that followed were some of the happiest of Olivia's life. As winter slowly gave way to early spring, she and Yates fell into a comfortable rhythm. They worked together to run the ranch, with Olivia learning about cattle and horses while Yates learned about her dream of starting a school. Mrs. Patterson came 3 times a week as usual, and she was delighted to discover that Yates had married. "It's about time," she declared, hugging Olivia warmly. "This place needs a woman's touch, and Yates needs someone to care for. He's been alone too long." Olivia threw herself into learning everything she could about ranch life. She learned to ride well, to help with the cattle, to mend fences and tend the garden that would provide vegetables come summer. She learned to make butter and cheese to preserve food, to cook the hearty meals that Yates needed after long days of physical work. But she didn't forget her dream of teaching. In the evenings, she and Yates would discuss plans for a school. They decided to convert one of the barns on the property they had acquired from Samuel into a schoolhouse. It would be perfect, large enough for a dozen students or more, and centrally located between several family ranches. Word spread through the community about Olivia's teaching background, and soon neighbors were stopping by to ask when the school would open. By early April, they had commitments from 8 families who wanted to send their children. "We need to get started on converting the barn," Yates said one evening as they sat on the porch watching the sunset. "If we work hard, we could have it ready by June. You could start teaching after the spring roundup is done." "That sounds perfect," Olivia said, squeezing his hand. "I can't wait to start." They began the work of converting the barn, and several neighbors came to help. It was a community effort, and Olivia was touched by how welcomed she felt. These were good people, hardworking and generous, and she was proud to be part of their community. One afternoon in late April, as Olivia was painting the walls of what would be the schoolhouse, a wagon pulled up outside. A woman about Olivia's age climbed down, followed by 3 children. "Hello," the woman called. "I'm Margaret Shaw. My husband and I have a ranch about 5 miles west of here. I heard you were opening a school and I wanted to meet you and see the building." "I'm Olivia Richardson," Olivia said, wiping paint from her hands and coming forward with a smile. "It's wonderful to meet you. These must be your children." "Yes, this is Emma. She's 9, Daniel, he's 7, and little Sarah, who just turned 5. They're all desperate to start proper schooling. I've been teaching them myself, but I'm not trained and I know they'd benefit from a real teacher." Olivia spent the next hour showing Margaret around the schoolhouse and discussing her plans for the curriculum. The 2 women hit it off immediately, and by the time Margaret left, they had become friends. Margaret invited Olivia and Yates to dinner the following Sunday, and Olivia accepted eagerly. "You seem happy," Yates observed that evening as they prepared for bed. "I am happy," Olivia said. "Happier than I ever thought possible. I have you, I have our home, I have my school starting soon, and now I'm making friends in the community. It's everything I dreamed of and more." Yates pulled her into his arms. "You've changed my life completely, you know that. Before you came, this place was just a house. Now it's a home. You've filled it with love and laughter and purpose." "You've changed my life too," Olivia said. "You saved me when I was lost. You gave me hope when I had none. You showed me what real love looks like." They kissed, and the kiss deepened into something more. Their love had grown and deepened over the past months, and now their physical intimacy matched the emotional connection they shared. Later, as they lay together in the darkness, Olivia thought about how perfect her life had become. "I love you," she whispered. "I love you too," Yates replied, "more than I ever thought possible." By mid-June, the schoolhouse was finished. It had a wood floor, large windows that let in plenty of light, a blackboard on one wall, and neat rows of desks that Yates and several neighbors had built. There was a bookshelf full of books that Olivia had ordered from a catalog, a globe, and maps on the walls. It was everything a proper school should be. The first day of school was a Monday in late June. 11 children showed up, ranging in age from 5 to 13. Olivia stood in front of the class, her heart full of joy, and introduced herself. "Welcome to the first day of school," she said. "I'm Mrs. Richardson, and I'm going to be your teacher. We're going to learn reading, writing, arithmetic, history, geography, and science. We're going to work hard, but we're also going to have fun. I want each of you to know that this is a safe place where questions are welcomed and mistakes are part of learning." The children listened attentively, and Olivia could see the eagerness in their eyes. She spent that first day getting to know each student, assessing their skill levels, and beginning to plan lessons that would challenge them appropriately. When school let out at 3 o'clock, Yates was waiting outside to walk her home. "How was it?" he asked eagerly. "It was wonderful," Olivia said, her face glowing. "The children are bright and eager to learn. This is going to be so rewarding, Yates. Thank you for making this possible." "You made it possible," Yates said. "You had the dream and the courage to pursue it. I just helped build the building." That summer was idyllic. Olivia taught Monday through Friday, and on weekends she and Yates worked the ranch together. They attended church on Sundays and social gatherings with their neighbors. They went on picnics in the beautiful Nevada landscape and spent evenings on their porch watching the stars come out. In August, Olivia realized she was pregnant. She told Yates one evening as they sat by the fire, even though it was summer and they didn't really need the warmth. She just loved the coziness of the flames. "I have something to tell you," she said, taking his hand. "What is it?" Yates asked, immediately alert to the seriousness in her tone. "We're going to have a baby," Olivia said. "I'm about 2 months along, I think." Yates's face broke into the biggest smile Olivia had ever seen. He pulled her into his arms and held her tight. "A baby," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "We're going to have a baby. Olivia, you've made me the happiest man alive. You're happy?" Olivia asked, even though his reaction made it obvious. "Happy doesn't even begin to describe it," Yates said. "I'm overjoyed, thrilled, ecstatic. We're going to be parents, Olivia. We're going to have a family." They talked long into the night about their hopes and dreams for their child. Yates wanted to teach the baby about ranching and the land. Olivia wanted to read to the baby and nurture a love of learning. They both wanted to give their child a loving, stable home full of warmth and security. "Boy or girl, it doesn't matter," Yates said. "As long as the baby is healthy and you come through the birth safely." "I'm strong," Olivia assured him, "and we'll get the doctor from Virginia City when the time comes. Everything will be fine." As autumn painted the landscape in shades of gold and orange, Olivia continued teaching, though she was starting to show. The children were curious about the baby, and Olivia used it as an opportunity to teach them about biology and human development in an age-appropriate way. In late October, Margaret Shaw threw a baby shower for Olivia, inviting all the women from the surrounding ranches. Olivia received blankets and tiny clothes, toys and advice. She was overwhelmed by the generosity and support of her community. "You're one of us now," Margaret said, hugging her. "We take care of our own out here." Winter came again, and with it the anniversary of that fateful storm that had brought Yates and Olivia together. On the 1-year anniversary of the day they met, Yates gave Olivia a beautiful necklace he had purchased in Virginia City. "1 year ago today, I met the love of my life," he said as he fastened the necklace around her neck. "You were standing in the street looking lost, and I knew I had to help you. I never imagined that helping you would lead to this, to us, to everything we've built together." "1 year ago today, my whole life changed," Olivia said, touching the necklace. "I came west to marry a stranger, and instead I found you. I found love and happiness and a home. I found everything I was searching for without even knowing I was searching for it." They renewed their vows privately that evening, standing before the fireplace in their cabin, speaking words of love and commitment from their hearts. It was even more meaningful than their rushed wedding had been, because now they knew each other deeply, and their love had been tested and proven true. As January turned to February, and then March, Olivia's pregnancy advanced. She had to stop teaching in late February, turning the school over to a young woman named Alice who had recently moved to the area. But Olivia stayed involved, planning lessons and helping Alice adjust to her new role. On a warm April evening, Olivia went into labor. Yates rode hard to Virginia City to fetch Dr. Turner while Mrs. Patterson stayed with Olivia, keeping her calm and comfortable. By the time Yates returned with the doctor, Olivia was deep in the throes of labor, but she was handling it well. Yates refused to leave her side, holding her hand and wiping her forehead with a cool cloth. "You're doing so well," he kept saying. "You're so strong. I love you so much." Just after midnight, Olivia gave birth to a healthy baby boy. When the doctor placed the baby in her arms, Olivia looked down at her son and felt her heart expand with a love so fierce it took her breath away. "He's perfect," she whispered. "He's beautiful," Yates agreed, tears streaming down his face, just like his mother. They named him Thomas Yates Richardson. Thomas after Yates's father and Yates as a middle name to carry on the family tradition. Little Thomas had dark hair like his father and blue eyes that Olivia hoped would eventually turn gray like Yates's. The first few months with a newborn were exhausting but wonderful. Olivia had never experienced such complete and total love. She nursed Thomas and sang to him and marveled at every tiny milestone. Yates was a devoted father, changing diapers and walking the floor with Thomas when he was fussy, singing lullabies in his deep voice that never failed to calm the baby. By summer, Olivia was ready to return to teaching part-time. She and Yates worked out a schedule where she taught 3 mornings a week, and Mrs. Patterson cared for Thomas during those hours. It was the perfect balance, allowing Olivia to pursue her passion while still being primarily focused on her son. As Thomas grew from an infant to a toddler, he became the light of his parents' lives. He was a happy, curious child, always exploring and asking questions. Yates taught him about the ranch, taking him on gentle horseback rides and showing him the cattle. Olivia read to him constantly, fostering a love of stories and learning. When Thomas was 2, Olivia became pregnant again. This time she was less nervous, knowing what to expect. Their second child, a daughter they named Lucy Margaret Richardson, was born on a beautiful October morning. She had Olivia's auburn hair and a sunny disposition that made everyone who met her smile. "We're so blessed," Olivia said one evening as she and Yates sat on the porch, watching Thomas play while Lucy slept in her cradle. "Look at everything we have. Our children, our home, our ranch, the school. It's more than I ever dreamed possible. We've built a good life," Yates agreed. "But the foundation of it all is us, our love for each other. Everything else grew from that." As the years passed, the Richardson family continued to grow and thrive. Olivia returned to teaching full-time once Lucy started school, and the school itself grew, eventually requiring a second teacher. The ranch prospered under Yates's careful management, becoming one of the most successful in the territory. When Thomas was 10 and Lucy was 8, Olivia discovered she was pregnant again. This pregnancy was more difficult than the previous 2, and at 34, she felt every ache and pain more acutely than she had in her 20s. But when their third child, a son they named Samuel Henderson Richardson after the man whose death had brought Olivia and Yates together, was born healthy and strong, all the difficulties were forgotten. "Samuel would have been pleased," Olivia said, holding the baby and looking at Yates with tears in her eyes. "To know that his name lives on, that something good came from his passing. He brought us together," Yates said. "Even though he never knew it, he gave me the greatest gift of my life. It's only right that we honor his memory." The children grew, and life continued its steady rhythm. Thomas developed a love of ranching and announced at 15 that he wanted to take over the family ranch someday. Lucy inherited her mother's love of teaching and began helping at the school when she was just 12. Young Samuel was the adventurous one, always exploring and getting into mischief, but with such a sweet nature that no one could stay mad at him for long. In the winter of 1891, 15 years after that storm that had changed everything, Olivia and Yates celebrated their anniversary by taking a rare trip alone to San Francisco. The children stayed with Margaret and her family, and for 1 week, Olivia and Yates were just a couple again, not parents or rancher or teacher, just two people in love. "You ever regret it?" Yates asked one evening as they walked along the beach, watching the sun set over the Pacific Ocean. "Staying with me instead of going back to Boston or starting over somewhere else." Olivia stopped walking and turned to face him. "Regret it? Yates, marrying you was the best decision I ever made. You gave me everything I ever wanted and things I didn't even know I wanted. You gave me love and security and a family and a purpose. You gave me a home. How could I possibly regret that? I just want to make sure you're happy," Yates said. "That you don't feel like you settled or missed out on something." "I'm happier than I ever thought possible," Olivia said firmly. "I fell in love with you in 3 days trapped in a cabin during a snowstorm, and I've fallen more in love with you every day since. You're my best friend, my partner, the father of my children, and the love of my life. I wouldn't change a single thing about our life together." Yates kissed her then, right there on the beach with the waves crashing behind them and the sun painting the sky in brilliant colors. It was a kiss that held 15 years of love and partnership and friendship and passion, a kiss that promised another 15 years and beyond. When they returned to Nevada, they found that Thomas, with help from his siblings and Mrs. Patterson, had organized a surprise anniversary party. All their friends and neighbors were there, and the celebration lasted well into the night. There were toasts and speeches, laughter and music, and through it all, Olivia and Yates stood together, surrounded by the life they had built. "To my wife," Yates said when it was his turn to speak. "15 years ago, a storm brought her to my door. She was supposed to marry someone else, but fate had other plans. She's the strongest, smartest, kindest woman I've ever known. She's an amazing mother and teacher, a wonderful partner, and the best thing that ever happened to me. Olivia, I love you more today than I did 15 years ago, and I'll love you even more tomorrow." "To my husband," Olivia said, her voice thick with emotion. "He rescued me when I was lost. He gave me safety and love and a home. He supported my dreams and helped me build them into reality. He's the best father our children could ask for, and the best partner I could imagine. Yates, you're my hero, my love, and my forever. Thank you for 15 wonderful years." As the party continued around them, Olivia looked at her husband and her children and her friends, and she felt a profound sense of gratitude and contentment. She had come west seeking a new life, and she had found so much more than that. She had found purpose and community and love beyond measure. Years continued to pass in a blur of happiness and hard work. Thomas married a lovely young woman named Sarah when he was 22, and they built a house on the far end of the ranch property. Lucy became a teacher, taking over the school from her mother when Olivia decided to retire at 50. Samuel surprised everyone by announcing he wanted to study law, and he left for San Francisco to attend university, though he promised to return to Nevada when his studies were complete. Olivia and Yates became grandparents when Thomas and Sarah welcomed a daughter. Holding her granddaughter for the first time, Olivia was overwhelmed with joy. The circle of life continued, and her family grew. On a quiet evening in the spring of 1902, 26 years after that fateful storm, Olivia and Yates sat on their porch watching the sunset, just as they had done thousands of times before. They were older now, with gray in their hair and lines on their faces, but their love was as strong as ever. I was thinking today about that first night we spent in the cabin, Olivia said. Do you remember? The storm was raging outside and we were basically strangers, and I told you I felt safe with you. I remember, Yates said, taking her hand. I remember everything about those 3 days. They were the most important 3 days of my life. Mine too, Olivia said. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if the storm hadn't hit. If we'd made it to town before it started, I would have learned about Samuel's death and probably tried to find work in Virginia City. We might never have gotten to know each other. But the storm did hit, Yates said, and it trapped us together long enough for us to see what we could be to each other. Some people might call it chance or luck. I call it providence. So do I, Olivia agreed. Everything happened exactly as it was meant to. I came west to marry one man and ended up marrying the perfect man for me. I found my true love, my calling, my home. That storm was the best thing that ever happened to me, because it gave me you. You gave me a reason to live again, Yates said quietly. After the war, after losing my family, I was just existing, going through the motions. Then you came into my life and suddenly everything had color and meaning again. You made me want to build something lasting. You gave me hope and purpose and love. You gave me everything. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, holding hands and watching the sky change colors. Their life together had been extraordinary, full of love and laughter, challenges overcome and dreams achieved. They had raised good children who were making their own way in the world. They had built a successful ranch and a thriving school that had educated hundreds of children. They had loved each other through good times and bad, never wavering, never doubting, no regrets. Yates asked, echoing his question from years before. Not a single one, Olivia replied. My only regret is that I don't have another lifetime to spend with you, Yates said. One lifetime doesn't feel like enough. Then we'll have to make the most of every moment we have left, Olivia said. That's my plan, Yates agreed. As stars began to appear in the darkening sky, Olivia rested her head on Yates's shoulder, feeling completely content. She had traveled 3,000 miles to find a life she never expected. She had been trapped by a storm that became the greatest blessing she could imagine. She had said she felt safe with a stranger who became the love of her life. And through it all, through 26 years of marriage and partnership and love, that feeling had never changed. She still felt safe with him. She still loved him with all her heart. She still thanked fate or providence or whatever force had brought them together that winter day in 1876. The storm had trapped them in his cabin. The mail-order bride had said she felt safe with him. And from that unlikely beginning, they had built a love that would last forever, a family that would carry on their legacy, and a life full of meaning and joy. As darkness fell over their Nevada ranch, Olivia and Yates went inside their cabin, the same cabin where it had all begun. They banked the fire, checked the locks, and went to bed in the same room where they had spent that first uncertain night as virtual strangers. Now, decades later, they lay together as husband and wife, best friends and true loves, two souls who had found each other against all odds and never let go. Outside, the stars wheeled overhead in the clear desert sky, and the wind whispered through the sagebrush. Inside, two hearts beat in harmony, bound together by a love that had begun in a winter storm and burned bright and warm through all the seasons of their lives. It was a love worth waiting for, worth fighting for, worth building a lifetime around. It was, simply put, everything.